7 years ago in 2012, I discovered the YouTuber Juan Ortiz, an artist who studied at the Philadelphia Art Institute, who is also a critic on the internet who reviews video games to recommend for others. His sense of humor and analysis of video games was so charming to me that not only did I become a fan of his, I also wanted to write reviews just like him. However, I didn't have the tools to create reviews like he did at the time. I kept looking for ways I could express my opinion on video games to a wide audience, but each of my endeavors turned out fruitless. It wasn't until 2 years ago in 2017 that I decided to break into the scene with written text reviews. I've written about 15 since then, and while they're not a blazing success, they've been enough for me to hone my craft for this day. Now, I've actually had the ability to make these reviews since 2016, not to my knowledge until recently, which is the first of 4 reasons why I'm finally doing this now. My second reason is that I wanted to get used to the tools at my disposal and learn how to use them to their fullest potential. Third, before now, my videos have remained unmonetized. On YouTube, there's a program in place for creators to have ads plastered all over their videos and receive compensation for their work. Similar to TV ratings and how sponsorships work on those programs, what I'm doing now is experimenting with YouTube's program to see if a living can be made off of it. Fourth, a video from the YouTube channel Jay's Reviews analyzing the storytelling ability of the Sonic franchise is what finally set me off. Mostly because I agree with the criticisms discussed in that video. We're going to talk more about this as the opening season continues, trust me. And yes, to finally start off my debut into this field, I'm reviewing almost every major title in the Sonic series. Minus a few games because I don't own them or don't care about them. With that said, hello, I'm David, and this is my look at Sonic the Hedgehog for the SEGA Genesis. In the late 80s, decades ago, Nintendo dominated the video game market with the Nintendo Entertainment System. Service Games, better known as SEGA, wanted to compete with Nintendo for their own hold in the industry. It wouldn't be until the early 90s when SEGA finally had a concept that could compete with a mega corporation. Ladies and gentlemen, meet the SEGA Genesis, a 4th generation 16-bit home video game console that marketed itself as the cooler, faster, more adult alternative to Nintendo's counterpart at the time. Even though the Super Nintendo Entertainment System was a place to play at the time. Why? Metroid. Hey, I still got my kicks out of this system with Sonic 2 and its Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the fighting game, which only now got a successor earlier this year. Now Sega had the hardware to compete with Nintendo, but they didn't have the one thing that could rival the likes of Mario. A mascot. Alex Kidd was originally meant to fill this role for Sega, but we all know how that turned out, isn't that right, you furry blue bastard? The design of Sonic himself was the result of countless drafts and concept ranging from a bunny rabbit, an armadillo, whoever this fat ass is, and finally the Hedgehog himself. With all these things in place, Sega created their first true foray in the home video game market with Sonic the Hedgehog. The game itself is a 16-bit 2D side-scrolling platformer which uses the Genesis' advanced processing power at the time, where the player must use their understanding of physics to gain speed and blast through levels of the game. There are at least 19 levels or acts in the game, with almost every 3 having a particular theme to their design. These are referred to as zones, and they all have their own unique look and obstacles to face. There are a total of 6 zones in the game, and your job is to run through them all, rescuing little wooden creatures from the mad roboticist, Dr. Ivo Robotnik. This game is like an easy-to-play but hard-to-master kind of title. Simple controls and mechanics that make it very welcoming to pick up and play for newer players. I'm going to assume you're using a controller like this to play the game, just for the sake of making it easier for me to explain the controls. You can move Sonic back and forth by pressing left or right on the directional pad. Pressing up will cause him to just look upwards and shift the camera in that direction if you hold it down. Pressing down, however, while on the move, Sonic will roll into a ball. This is a great way for attacking Robotnik's Badnik robots on the ground, or for gaining speed down slopes. Pressing one of the face buttons will make Sonic jump, which is how you will be mainly attacking enemies. By jumping on an enemy and booping them in the head is how you will defeat them. Robotnik himself takes multiple hits before he can go down, usually 8, and he can be found at the end of every 3rd act in the zone. Sonic, however, goes down in 1 hit, unless you find these capsules which contain shields or golden rings. Rings are something that you want to collect as many as you can and hold on to for your dear life. If you get hit, you lose every ring in your possession without dying, but you'll have only a few seconds to collect a few of them before they disappear. Collect 100 rings without getting hit and you'll earn an extra life to continue the game from the beginning of the level you died in, or the last checkpoint you came in contact with. But if you make it to the end of the first or second act of a zone, a giant golden ring will appear at the end of the level for you to jump into. Doing so will grant you access into the special stages, bonus levels where you must navigate Sonic through rotating mazes to reach one of the 6 Chaos Emeralds. Collecting all 6 guarantees you the best ending, where all that's added is the Chaos Emeralds disappearing into the sky and leaving behind a bed of flowers. This scene is never explained. The special stages themselves can be a pain in the ass. The sheer fact that the level rotates the way it does means that you could just be within reach of obtaining an emerald, only to fall down into a chasm of goals that put you out of the special stage and onto the next level. There are these R symbols that reverse which direction the level rotates, which can screw up your efforts to make any progression in the special stage. But nothing compares to the star bumpers. I hate these things. You hit them, you bounce off them. They suck. Now, Sonic may be all about going fast, but often levels in the game don't really support the ability to just roll through them all in a short time span. The only zones in the game that really support that are Green Hill and Starlight Zone, the first and fifth zones in the game respectively. No, unfortunately the game's designed a bit more like a traditional platformer, waiting for places to stand out and to be within reach in order to progress. Usually whenever I try to go fast in this game, it often finds some way in order to stop me dead in my tracks and kill my high. But that kinda makes the points when you can do crazy shit like this more rewarding. Still, I don't think that excuses how the levels are constructed. Green Hill, while it is a great start to learn the mechanics of the game, has a few obstacles that halt the pace of the player, like these walls you have to roll through with this shit. Marble Zone is a complete slog compared to what the player just experienced in Green Hill, with a very linear pathway and much slower platforming. Spring Yard picks up the pace a bit, but it's easy to run into obstacles or do something stupid like this. Labyrinth Zone isn't a labyrinth at all and is very straightforward. However, being underwater and Sonic not able to swim makes things difficult. To avoid drowning, well, I should just let the professionals explain it.
Sonic, how are you able to breathe underwater, even if that's your only weakness? Okay, I think I got that. And how do you survive underwater? Okay, so you get air bubbles from holes, I guess, and you pop them with your nose so you can get more air.
Starlight Zone is like Spring Yard in that it brings up the pace again, but it's easier to get hit or die if you're not careful. It's also a bit more platforming. Scrap Brain Zone just sucks. For a final level, I think it brings up the difficulty a little too much, with so many obstacles in the third act calling back to the Labyrinth Zone. Despite the game's flaws, Sonic 1 was a critical success for SEGA. The game managed to captivate the audience it was targeted for, at least in North America, and sales were through the roof. It pushed units for the Genesis like Halo Combat Evolved would do for the Xbox, and SEGA had a killer app on their hands. One of the biggest favors in that regard was the game sounded like no other. Despite what the system was capable of, Sonic 1 had an absolutely jamming soundtrack that was easier on the ears than any other game of the generation. Listen to these tracks from Sonic 1 and other Genesis games and the Super Nintendo. Do you see what I mean? I didn't personally grow up with this game. Hell, I didn't play it until long after the Nintendo GameCube entered my life. But this game's success would pave the way to the game that I did play as a kid, and hold dear to my heart as the first video game I ever played. I'm David, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.